To celebrate the 37th anniversary of The Legend of Zelda, we'll be discussing what we think would make the perfect Zelda game. Welcome to the Switch Clicks podcast, episode 124, recorded on February 21st, 2023, 37 years after the release of the original Zelda game on the Famicom. My name is Nathan, and I'm joined by my fellow co-host, Tyler.
Hello! I am Zelda expert. Yeah.
Yes, you are a Zelda expert and artist.
Yes, that's me. I may not know that much about Zelda, but I sure do have opinions about things I don't know very well, so it's all gonna work out, I think.
With a huge portfolio of Zelda games.
Yep. 2.
Huge portfolio. 2 Zelda games. Very sizable.
Haven't beat either of them. Oh, actually 3. I have beat 1. I beat Hyrule Warriors on the 3DS.
Oh, okay. You know what? I'll take that. So Tyler and I each compiled together a list. We're gonna each say 3 things that we want and don't want for a perfect Zelda game.
Yeah.
And we're gonna discuss those ideas.
As the resident Zelda expert, you should probably go first. I feel like
No. Be my guest. Be my guest.
Okay. Well,
do you think we should start with the wants or the don't wants?
I think positivity is overrated. So let's just start off on a negative note. Let's make everyone bummed out. That sounds like a good way to start this.
You want to start off with disappointments?
I think starting off with the negative.
What's your first negative?
My first negative. Okay. This is maybe a big one. I think the next perfect Zelda game is not Breath of the Wild. I think they should not do a Breath of the Wild type. That should be its own category of Zelda game, like a traditional Zelda game, with like a bunch of maybe like take the good from that and put it into a traditional Zelda game instead of basing it on a full open world.
So, like, what kind of approach are we looking at here? Is it like going to be completely linear, or is it like a massive open world, but you have to do it in a linear fashion?
I would imagine it's similar to like an Ocarina of Time or like a Wind Waker, where the story is pretty linear, but you can kind of go wherever you want. It's
yeah.
I think taking inspiration from Breath of the Wild in some aspects is nice, but also I feel like if Zelda just kind of turns into Breath of the Wild, that's a little disappointing because Breath of the Wild, for as good as it is, isn't as unique, I think, as Zelda games, what they were before.
So it's kind of like you just kind of want it to go back to like the Zelda identity and
I think so.
Feeling generic, like most open world games.
Yeah, I feel like the fear of Zelda staying super open world, it might just turn into a Ubisoft game after a certain time.
Ubisoft games with Ubisoft towers.
Yeah.
I get it. Ironically enough, I know you're gonna hate me for this, but that's actually one of my positive points. I kind of do like the Breath of the Wild open world concept because one of the things that Breath of the Wild did so well in comparison to most open world games is just like how much freedom you actually get. You don't need to progress by level. You don't need to progress in the story. You just kind of play anywhere you want.
I do think, I think Tears of the Kingdom might fix this. I don't know. But I think Breath of the Wild, the big thing it misses out on is like cool bosses. Because the bosses in Breath of the Wild are all kind of cookie cutter because they're not in, 4 of them are necessary to beat the game, I think. But
actually 2? 6 technically, because you do have to fight them.
6 technically? Okay.
You have to fight them regardless if you go to the dungeons.
Yes. Yeah. So it's 6. That's all the blights or all the different. There's
4 blights.
3. Yeah, 4 blights. Okay, I was just wrong. I thought there was 3, and then 2 final Ganons. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that makes.
And you fight the 4 blights regardless of where you go.
Yes. Yeah. For whatever reason, I just assumed there were 3 blights because like 3's. Is it evident that I haven't played the game or I haven't beat the game?
I'll let you go on that one.
But yeah, I think it's like if it can stay. Breath of the Wild is unique because it just kind of lets you explore. But I feel like if Tears of the Kingdom or this hypothetical Ultimate Zelda game still has like the I do not know any of the Zelda boss names, but something as interesting as that big black thing with a mouth.
Yeah.
Or multiple spiders with a big eye that you have to shoot, or something like that. Like
giant tentacle monster with a huge eye.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because I feel like at least in the first Breath of the Wild, some of the bosses kind of miss that Zelda charm. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know.
No, it's fine. Actually, almost every boss in that game is just a Ganon, and it gets a little. It becomes a questionable thing.
There's a big rock and a lion guy, so
that yeah. I mean, the lion guy came from the first game. The rock came from. I don't know.
I mean, it's a big rock. It's not exactly the most unique design.
It's just a rock, and you mine it.
It's a lot of rocks.
You literally play Minecraft to kill it.
I can't believe one of the bosses in Breath of the Wild is the Iron Golem.
You gotta mine that ore.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. They both do drop ore when killed.
But yeah, you are right. There aren't really like that many unique bosses in Breath of the Wild. Like, I guess having that good balance between a Breath of the Wild styled map, but then playing it in a traditional Zelda format.
I'd be worried it would kind of feel like the newest Pokemon game, where it's like you can go wherever you want, but you should follow this path. So I like keeping it open is probably still for the best. I guess it could even just be like the first Zelda game where the world is open, where each temple has its own kind of unique boss, or as unique as you could get for like what 500 pixels on per page or something.
Sure. I don't know the specs about that.
I don't know what that would be, but yeah, at least that's what I'm thinking. What's your negative opinion?
My first negative? What I really don't want is any sort of complex progression system or inventory system. So like think of it maybe like Skyrim's inventory system.
You don't want Skyrim.
I don't want that.
Yeah, that makes
because there's just, even though it's not actually that difficult to manage, for a Zelda game, it probably would not be very enjoyable to have all these different menus, all these different like stats that you have to configure, like mess around with and manage, all these types of items and weapons that you have to manage. And this kind of hinges a little more on the issue with Breath of the Wild's what do you call it? Weapon durability system too. Like I don't think it would be a good idea to have something like a stamina or weight system that many other games have, and you have to carry a certain limit of items. I just want it to be simple. You collect materials and you collect weapons, and that's it.
Yeah, I do know. Like when you're playing like a Bethesda game or something, whenever you open the inventory, it like hits me really hard. I'm like, whoa, that's a lot of information all at once.
Exactly. Yeah.
And keeping it simple is definitely for the best, I would think.
Yeah.
Would you ever be like opposed to a Zelda game with a skill tree?
Not necessarily.
It just has to be done well.
It just has to be done well and sort of like how do I say that? Kind of streamlined into the gameplay itself. Like you don't really need to worry too much about it.
Yeah, Zelda's never like a lot about the combat. It's not like a God of War where each little bit on the skill tree makes you feel exponentially cooler while fighting, because Zelda's combat's always been simple, and I feel like they wouldn't want to change that 'cause it's so iconic to the series.
And yeah, at the same time, I also want to balance if they had a skill tree. I don't want it to be like super overpowered and make you super
that makes sense.
Yeah,
I think that's pretty reasonable.
Yep, just enough to keep that reasonable skill level for the player.
Yeah. Actually, my next negative kind of fits nicely into there. Like you don't want useless items, right? So I feel like get rid of those one-time use items, like the things you get in the dungeon, or like the tools you'll get in the dungeon and never use ever again.
The fidget spinner from Twilight Princess.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna bring up. The fidget spinner from Twilight Princess. Like I think it's cool when you can get a boomerang or a hook shot, something you can use throughout the entire game, and it's super helpful. But then when you get like the beetle that carries you up in Smash Bros, I don't know how useful that is. Like consistently. I feel like if you give Link a tool, it should be a tool that like persists and is very like it persists through the whole game.
And like he can use it through combat and whatnot.
Yeah, I know like the Batman Arkham games are really good at that. Or at least the first one is, where you get like every tool you get opens up the world just a little bit. So like you don't get one tool that completely breaks the game. Every time you get a tool, it like chunks open this game more and more and more. So and like you can use it in if you get like bombs, you can use the bombs in combat, you can use the bombs around the world. The bombs are a consistent strategy. It's not like, okay, so I got this like little computer device that can hack open doors. I'm going to use it 3 times through the game. No, you're going to use it a lot because there's only like maybe 10 gadgets in that game that you consistently use. And I feel like that's always the best rather than a fidget.
Yeah. And I think like only 2 ever Zelda games have actually done this type of thing. Well, technically 3 have done this whole useful item thing like actually well. I think it was like the Wind Waker, the Minish Cap, Breath of the Wild kind of let you use items properly.
Yeah. I
and
can
like,
agree with that.
Use them anytime, get materials that you want, and you don't have to like worry too much about never using them again. It's just like you said, most of the Zelda games fall into the problem where you get an item and you just use it once or twice in a dungeon, and then like all the other times you use it are just out of obligation and it doesn't really feel natural.
Yeah. I think Wind Waker's definitely a good example of this. Well, mostly because it's like the only one I've almost played to completion out of those 3. But like
pick the right one to play.
I feel like every tool in that game, even if like it's the metal boots and you only use them like 4 times, it still like feels like a tool you'd get. Where I feel like some of the Twilight Princess stuff that I've seen in later games, granted, have not played that game or very far into that game. I feel like a lot of the tools I see late game feel like something kind of just made up to throw in there because they needed another dungeon.
Yep, that's right.
I can that's kind of annoying. So no more of that. In this perfect Zelda game, no more of that. It's much easier said than done, but no one's actually going to be making this game. So
please make every item useful throughout the entire game.
Yeah.
I guess Breath of the Wild kind of did that.
Yeah, I would say so. Even like the powers you get for each ghost guy, they're all useful. The like 5 Sheikah Slate abilities that you get are very consistent throughout the whole game.
Yeah, use them the entire playthrough, or it's completely optional.
And then sometimes you get like Japanese clip of someone like practically breaking the game with their massive Breath of the Wild combo, and you're like, whoa,
flying across the world at 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, just snipe a bokoblin that's just hanging out.
Yep.
He's never knew that 3 boulders and a link will snipe him one poor day, but that's just what happened.
Yeah. I guess, okay, so my next negative here, it hinges on a bit of how the game is structured.
Okay.
And it's been a recurring issue from like literally almost every game ever. Please do not have a prerequisite to higher difficulty.
Oh, I know what you mean. I don't know what do other Zelda games have that?
almost every like I'd say like about half the Zelda games have a higher difficulty, like a higher difficulty option, but almost every case of them have some sort of stupid prerequisite that you have to go through.
Yeah, that's annoying.
Yeah,
So it's
so
not like an easy, normal, hard, then like after you beat the game, you can like new game plus and like nightmare difficulty. It's just like the hard is locked behind prerequisites.
sometimes new game plus require it's like a new game plus, but that's what the hard mode is in that sense.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and then in some games you have to pay money for it, which kind of felt disappointed by.
Oh, I do know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, as a
Um,
Pokemon guy, I feel that because the only game that's ever had a difficulty option, it was beat the game, and then depending on the version, if you're playing Black 2, you get hard mode. If you're playing White 2 after you beat the game, you get easy mode.
what in the world? I never heard about that.
And you have to connect with the other game in order to get easy and hard mode for the next time you play the game.
Oh my goodness, that is insane.
Very
Even more
smart
expensive.
game design.
Yes, very cheap, very affordable.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Yes.
don't I don't think it's smart to lock a higher difficulty behind some sort of
Yeah.
prerequisite. I think you should be able to start it off right at the beginning.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I feel like even if higher difficulty is sometimes just artificially inflating the numbers on like people's
Mhm.
health and stuff,
Yeah,
it's still a nice thing to get the choice to do.
yeah, and don't make people pay for it.
Yeah, that's probably the first rule of that.
First rule of any game: don't make people
Yeah,
pay.
don't make people pay for a difficulty option of all things.
Yeah, even if it
Yeah.
adds like 200 hours to your game.
Yeah. In like another similar vein, we're like it's all working out really well here. I think my last negative is more just like a cautionary tale where I
Yeah,
feel like anytime you talk about your hypothetical blank, you always get like you want to take inspiration from other things, which is always good, but
yeah,
Zelda really needs to stay its own thing, which is good and probably will always happen. But I feel like given the wrong people, I could see Legend of Zelda becoming like a Elden Ring, like Soulsborne type game. It is already kind of similar,
yeah.
and Zelda definitely staying its own. This Zelda game would stay its own thing. It would still be a Zelda game and not fall under another category, which is pretty much like a filler answer. Like
hmm
obviously that is what you'd want, but might as well put it out there anyway.
It just
Zelda
needs to be
should
its
be Zelda.
own. It should just be its own thing, as it
Mhm.
always was.
Yeah,
High
yeah, yeah.
fantasy, and nothing that makes it nothing that's obviously inspired by other fantasy.
Yeah.
Um, I guess banking off of that identity part, my third negative thing comes from the idea of how dungeons are laid out. Because I believe in Breath of the Wild, we've seen a rather disappointing dungeon layouts with the divine beasts because
Yeah, okay.
essentially like what you have to do is you get the map and you automatically have the whole dungeon puzzle, and that's the sort of thing I kind of don't want to see. um and this was also the problem with many of the water temple dungeons, where you kind of
Mm,
where like the
yeah.
whole mechanic is the whole dungeon itself. I kind of want it to be more of individual puzzles in each room, and
Yeah, that
that's what
makes
I enjoyed a lot from the older Zelda games.
Mhm. Yeah, I can see that. Having like a it it's less of a the challenge is less figuring out each room is important
Hmm.
as opposed to figuring out the gimmick of the whole I know what you're trying to say. It's hard to place in words.
So it's like trying to like figure out like the whole main area that you're
Yeah.
basically stuck in for half the time.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Because I feel like puzzle rooms are always more like the a dungeon built of a bunch of puzzle rooms would always be more interesting than the dungeon just being one big puzzle. And I guess when it's one big puzzle room, it always leads to like backtracking stuff.
Yeah.
Annoying.
Yep. Very annoying backtracking.
Mm-hmm. That is always the worst. Not a fan of backtracking.
Yeah, not only that, but it artificially makes the dungeon feel a lot more
tedious.
Well, yeah, a lot more tedious than it actually is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Just because of that repetition you're seeing, it's like you're always back to this main central area all the time.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like given enough, like with enough like juice, if you will, that could be cool. Like the traditional Zelda forest to get the Master Sword is technically that, going back to the same room over and over again. But that's like the dungeon's gimmick, kind of. So, but like when all your dungeons kind of just feel like I'm in the same room over and over again, yeah, that's kind of boring.
Now let's move over to what we
I feel negative. Get out of here. I'm back at a positive. We got all that negativity out. Let's talk about the best Zelda.
What do we want from the best Zelda game?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm going to start this off with a very short but sweet thing. I want Link to be green again. I want Green Link back, please. I want normal nighttime Cap Link with his green pajamas running around with his swords. I like that look a lot. And I feel like, I mean, this is mostly Bro's frustrations, but I just want Green Link, please.
Want Green Link, simple as that.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. I mean, like, what can go wrong? What can go wrong with going back to Green Link?
They make Green Link, but he's like, they just somehow mess it up.
They make Green Link, but you have to spend like 300 hours to get Green
you
Link.
You have to earn Green Link.
Oh wait, they already did that.
They just sad. The Link from now on is like the kind of off green that you get from the like traditional garb in Breath of the Wild, where it's like kind of green but also kind of brown, and it just kind of looks like he's wearing a green tank top. It doesn't really look very good. That would be my night thing. They go back to Green Link, but it's kind of the ugly Breath of the Wild Green Link.
So kind of like a bit of a hybrid between the two.
I think, honestly, I think the original Legend of Zelda knocked it out of the park. Link, if they can get pink hair Link back, ooh, I wouldn't be mad. I like pink hair Link.
Pink hair Link.
Blonde Link's pretty good too, though. They can keep him blonde, all things considered.
Dirty blonde.
But no, I think that's my baseline is I just like Green Link. Blue Link's cool, but he's not
cool. Okay. So I technically already said what I wanted. Like my first thought was which was to keep that open world of Breath of the Wild. Basically, what I wanted to emphasize on this was that I guess having too linear of a game would make it feel like any other open world game. So like for example, if you played Spider-Man, like the Insomniac Spider-Man games, you'd know that yes, you could technically explore all of New York City, but in order to progress the game, you have to go through this sequential story the entire time. I definitely don't think that's a good idea for a Zelda game. Like you can keep the other dungeons, but like have that balance, like what we discussed earlier with I guess the progression of the game, like just your own progression of the game, and like how you want to pace it, but at the same time, not make it so free and easy, or not make it like the Pokemon games,
where it's like a suggestion.
Yeah, basically like that.
I do think I'm not sure. I don't think Zelda really did this that much. I feel like if they do it more of like a instead of the boss being there from the beginning, you attack him whenever. If it is slightly more linear, seeing like a Breath of the Wild open world change over time, like the bad guys are winning, so like the world's getting more messed up, could be cool.
Yeah, it would be cool. Yeah, that would be the upside of making the game a little more
little linear. But no, I see what you're talking about because I feel like that might kill the flow that Breath of the Wild tried so hard to build.
Yeah, be unique from other open world games.
Yeah. No, that makes complete sense. I think kind of another more visual thing is I think it should have a new art style again. I like when Legend of Zelda switches up the art style. I feel like every game does switch, like every couple games switch up the art style, but I don't really know what a direction they haven't really gone in is. The existence of cartoon Link, young Link is just kind of Legend of Zelda has a very distinctive style, I think, most of the time, and then you'll occasionally get like a Wind Waker or like a lesser degree Link Between Worlds, where the art style changes a little bit. But Mono, I have there's another little facet that they haven't really dug into. They haven't really, I mean, they have a little bit in Twilight Princess. They haven't really dug into horror as much as they probably could. And that could be cool. Maybe not for this game, because I feel like it wouldn't work with all the other stuff we talked about. But I feel like there should be a Zelda game in the future that leans a little more into the creepy side of Zelda. Because I like
thematic?
Creepy.
Thematic or visual?
I think both. To a degree. Because maybe more thematic than like I could see like a Wind Waker art style, but the story's like, what's happening?
They got pretty close to doing that, actually.
In which game? Or in
Twilight Princess or the Wind Waker 2, which was supposed to be...
I do agree. Also, to be fair, it just also kind of sounds like I think that's it's like the inner edgy 12-year-old in me is like I want dark and spiky. But yeah, I feel like a Zelda game, at least just leaning into a new art style, would be cool because it's been a little bit, I think. It's been a little bit since they dramatically changed everything. Maybe Breath of the Wild kind of had a painterly, almost storybook kind of look to it. And if they really push that, that could be cool. Where it's almost, not to the same degree, but is the game called Okami, I want to say? It's the dog, the white dog with the red that looks like it's all painted.
I know what you're talking about.
And I feel like that would be a better art style to lean into. Just really push the traditional kind of Japanese painterly look, maybe.
That would actually be really nice to see. Although I know I can understand that some people don't really like the solid outlines that this art style has, the Okami art style. I think it actually worked pretty well for a Zelda game.
Yeah, I do think, the last time Zelda dramatically changed up their art style, the fans were not the happiest initially.
Yeah.
So, who knows? Maybe people will learn their lesson, though. I feel like as long as the game is good, then people be happy.
But would you like? But what kind of would you like them to use that Okami color palette or?
I don't think so. I think you can more the new Puss in Boots movie is its art style leans a lot into like painterly brushstrokey kind of looking art while still having just normal 3D looking forms, where like Okami completely leans into it to a degree that I do not think would work for Zelda. But the just textural look, or like you remember the promotional teasers for Pokemon Legends Arceus?
Yeah.
Where they really leaned into that?
Yeah.
That could be cool. Because Legends Arceus did not deliver on that.
As per our review on it,
which you can check out on our YouTube channel. yeah, I think that it's not quite overused yet, and I still feel like there's a little bit of hidden potential in switching up, maybe not the art style, but the texture of a Zelda game.
You don't want them to use shell shading again?
I mean, cell shading could work, um, it with the art style, but I think a new coat of paint would be appreciated in Zelda, in this new Zelda game.
All right. Yeah, I'll take that then. Well, would you consider looking towards a anime style if that was ever an option?
I guess I
Or
wouldn't be opposed to it.
Studio Ghibli? 3D Studio Ghibli?
I mean, famously, 3D Studio Ghibli does not look that great, but I
Yeah.
do think if done well, uh, Zelda is probably the gaming franchise that probably I feel like encapsulates that feel the best
Yeah.
sometimes in like the lighter Zelda games at least, or even the darker ones. Studio Ghibli can get kind of dark. I do think if any big video game franchise were to adopt that style, it would feel the most at home in Legend of Zelda.
Well, there technically is already a 3D
Oh,
anime game that does use Studio Ghibli style.
what game?
Ni no Kuni. It's an RPG series. And I think every single game is done by Studio Ghibli, or at least the
Oh,
art
I
style.
have seen this before. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess you
Uh,
can't exactly steal that.
you can't exactly do it, but at the same time, look at
I mean,
how many styles of Pokemon, how many animes Pokemon went through.
yeah. Also, the 3D models, at least in the remake, I want to say remaster, don't look
Yeah.
that great. So you could
Yeah.
probably make it look a little bit better.
Hmm.
Almost, you know how Guilty Gear is animated, where it
Yeah.
has like it's very chunky. It's animated at like 12 frames a second,
Yeah.
and that always just has a really nice look to it. I feel like
Hmm.
a Zelda game could adopt that as well if they
Yeah.
wanted to push like a Guilty Gear or Dragon Ball Fighters uh look to it. But that also is
Yeah.
just I think those art styles look cool.
Hmm.
But yeah.
Now,
Uh-oh. This one
to
sounds like it should
complement
be big.
to complement that art style change, I know
Oh.
some people like this, some people don't. It's a bit of a mixed bag. But I kind of want to see a more narrative driven experience from a Zelda game.
Oh, okay.
And I say this because a couple of Zelda games have overly impressed me, um, because of how deep they go into, like, thematically and also like through character development and character relationships. Um,
Mhm.
Very few Zelda games have actually been able to do this well, whereas all the other ones either felt generic or they just felt like they tried to have a good story and didn't really hit the mark yet.
Yeah,
Um,
I can see that. I don't think I've ever heard someone say like the story in this new Zelda game blew me out of the water.
yeah, exactly. Um, let's see here. So Majora's Mask, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with many of the side quests. A lot of the side quests in that game dive into some really like dark and deep themes.
Mhm.
And I kind of want to see that happen again in the Zelda game. Maybe
Yeah.
maybe not to the darkest extent because Nintendo is changed now, but
So you like the
something,
in depth, like you want
yeah,
having like I think Majora's Mask really helped because it was like a small community. Like like the map isn't the biggest thing in the world, and
hmm
like so you can really fall in love with very specific characters.
hmm
And I think especially with the technology we have nowadays, I you can probably like having more in-depth side quests that dive deep into the characters
hmm
in the world is always a fantastic addition to literally anything and would be right at home in a Zelda game where like you already have these weird people like Beetle hanging around.
Yeah, exactly. It'd be nice to have a little bit more of these side plots and just get to know every character, like just to remember every character a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Um,
makes sense. It
yeah,
really would complement the like wacky designs a lot of Zelda a lot of Zelda characters have that all things considered, I haven't heard many people talk about like the guy in Wind Waker who is wearing like a winter coat and sells you the flag, the ship sail or something.
or how about
He's
the Elvis hair looking guy from the Wind
yeah,
Waker?
the Elvis hair looking guy. I think
Yeah,
diving deep into those wacky characters would really help everything I feel.
yeah. And I think it shouldn't just be like like the side quests either. I think it should be the main story. As much as
Oh
I
yeah.
hate to admit it, uh, Skyward Sword probably had one of the best stories of the entire series.
Oh.
And this was because the ending kept pulling on your heartstrings and it suddenly swept you off your feet. Like it pulled the carpet out from under you at certain points at the ending. And I think it really hit dramatically when you have to say farewell to one of your companions and then suddenly also witness another character die.
Ooh. I have not played the game, so I'm in the dark here, but that
I
sounds
I won't specify who for you, but
mhm.
it
And
does get
anyone else who hasn't played the game.
it does get very cinematic and dramatic in that game.
You
Um,
love to hear it.
Even just the relationship between Link and Zelda felt a lot more real compared to most other Zelda games.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's always a good thing.
Hmm.
I do know from the limited Zelda games I've played, um, I think I liked the Tetra Link relationship in Wind Waker,
Yeah,
but
that was
like
pretty
Twilight Princess, we just are ragging on the game today apparently.
good. That
Uh,
was
Twilight Princess Zelda really does just kind of feel like she's standing there the whole time.
yeah, that's what
She's
she
there
does
for
the entire
sure,
game. Stands there,
but
shoot arrows. Stands there again.
mhm. I mean, that's also how she just plays. They
True,
really captured that vibe, I think.
true.
stands there, shoot projectiles. But
Exactly.
no, yeah, I completely agree. I think having a Zelda game come out and people are like gushing over the story would be
Mhm.
very cool because I feel like the other medieval-ish anime Nintendo game tends to have people crushing over the stories. Actually, both.
Yeah. If
And
only our two resident fan our resident fantasy tactical RPG fans were here.
well, I can talk about the story in Pokemon games. You know, they're famously really in-depth and awesome. Uh, but
Says no one ever, unless you're a black and white
mhm,
fan.
it's true. It's true. And even then, I don't want to get into it. But yeah, I completely agree. And
Mhm.
honestly, in a similar vein, I feel like a deep a deep story that tugs on your heartstrings. I think a good twist could be a in order to in like a storyline twist. We talked about this a little bit, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
But I've just haven't really stopped thinking about it. I really think it'd be very cool if a Zelda game's boss was like a corrupt version of a past Link or something.
That would be
Maybe
absolutely amazing.
like a Link you in like Twilight Princess again, there's the guy who is Link, but he's not evil. He just helps you fight. But I feel like having an evil Link that isn't Dark Link that maybe you don't realize is Link until the end, but having like that be the focus of the story and maybe leaning a little more into the Zelda timeline because they haven't really I don't think they've really touched that, right? They haven't really
Yeah,
mentioned it much in game.
they just intentionally avoided it. Well, they did make a bit of a implication, but
Yeah.
that was more of a fourth wall break.
And like you could lean into that more, but also that could get you into like a whole slew of problems that like
Mhm.
superhero stuff always has to deal with where it's like, I'm gonna destroy the timeline. No, you're not. And then he stops them. Like, I don't think a Zelda game wants to have that, but I do think having a maybe Ganon corrupted version of a Link, almost like I do not know their name. The person from Link Between Worlds is kind of like that, where they're a Ganon
Ravio?
corrupted. Sure.
Ravio.
They're kind of like a dude who just gets corrupted by Ganon. I feel like if you have that, but the person who's corrupted is a past Link, that could be awesome.
I think if you wanted to make even more dramatic, have a corrupted version of a Link that you've already played before.
Yeah.
And so now you're fighting yourself in a technical sense.
Almost a okay. It could either be the like the split point. I think it's like Link dies. That's where it splits, right? Link dies in a certain game. Which game is
Ocarina
that?
Ocarina.
It could be that one, or it could be like the beginning of the game. You're in like feudal Japan, playing as a Link, and it's like a forced loss against a Ganon boss, and then the final boss is that feudal Link from the beginning of the game. That could be.
If that's the plot of Tears of the Kingdom, that'd be hilarious.
That would be very funny. But I think that could be a cool way to mix up the formula, because it's not like Ganon's the final boss in every Zelda game, but it is a good majority of them.
Yeah.
So
mixing a sizable number.
Yeah, mixing it up isn't the worst thing in the world. Actually, on that point, who's the main villain of the DS ones, like Spirit Tracks and Phantom Hourglass?
Phantom Hourglass has Bellum, Spirit Tracks has Malladus, and Chancellor Cole.
So they're not Ganon games.
They're non-Ganon games. No.
Yeah, I didn't think they were.
But like Malladus does kind of look like Beast Ganon eventually. So.
Oh well.
Yeah, almost fights like him too.
He's like his cousin three times removed, probably. So doesn't quite.
He's also a demon king, just like Ganon.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that could be a very fun little twist on. But yeah. All right.
Okay, so was that actually your other want, or
that was my last want? The past hero is the villain.
My last want might feel very underwhelming in this huge after this huge rant. This kind of does relate back to what you said earlier about better bosses. I kind of want more unique themes and dungeons. Like we need something that this wasn't just a Breath of the Wild problem, but many other Zelda games kind of felt like they had copy and paste dungeons or
I think Breath of the Wild might have been like the moment where it kind of clicked in everyone's mind. They went, oh yeah,
we need more unique dungeon themes, something to match with the environment and something to match with just the overall theme of the area that you're playing. I think we're missing a lot of that in Zelda games.
Even if in like Tears of the Kingdom you find a shrine that's in like a forest and the shrine itself has like tree roots coming through or something because it's been dug underground or something like that.
Yeah, that'd be really nice to have. Like, don't have it just like technology or zone, like a maze or something like that. Have it so it matches the actual vibe and atmosphere. And don't play the same music too. Play something that matches the play something that gives it a unique tone.
I'd be willing to agree, especially considering Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I imagine Tears of the Kingdom have a very like overgrown, desolate kind of feel to them. The fact that all the dungeons in Breath of the Wild are very pristine, all things considered, is a little jarring.
Yeah. And not only that, they don't really have any features besides technology and the occasional lava. Yeah,
I think that's a good list. I think we've made the perfect Zelda game. I don't know.
Any honorable mentions of something that you're iffy about?
Hmm.
Kind of on the bridge of wanting and don't wanting?
I want the owl back from Link Between Worlds, right? Link to the Past, where he's the owl at the save point. We haven't had an owl save point in a while. Or is it a crow?
Owls?
Is it a crow?
Owl save points came from Majora's Mask.
Majora's Mask, that's what they are.
But the actual talking owl came from Link's Awakening.
I think I was thinking of the Link Between Worlds. There's like crows and stuff that hang out around the save points or something. And I just like birds.
Birds.
I just think there should be more birds in Zelda.
More birds in Zelda.
I don't think that's a big enough point to. So that's my honorable mention.
I mean, we already have a huge talking bird who acts as Link's rival.
That's true.
And one that plays
Maybe
music.
It's him over and over again.
Him?
Yeah, he just hangs out at every save point.
Oh dear gosh, that would be insane. That would be a nightmare. Be mocking you every time you save your game, telling you how bad you are at the game.
Oh, you have to save? What? You're scared you're gonna die? Ooh, that's what he says every time you walk up.
Don't tell him we said that. I guess one thing I'm on the bridge about, kind of in between, is having a having a bit of a reference or Easter egg, like having enough Easter eggs or references back to the older games. I think Breath of the Wild did that pretty well, where it just kept everything at a vague level. But I don't want it to be like shoved in your face unless it was absolutely necessary to the story.
Yeah, I think they should do another thing where there's one winner and gets to be put into a Zelda game, and it's the most cryptic way to unlock it ever, and it takes a decade. That would be fun. Just make another one of those.
A secret room.
A secret room. Yeah, a secret room that just has a guy's name in it that's going to take like a decade to find. That sounds like a good.
Okay. That'd be a fun contest to have. But you know how big the glitching community is.
Yeah, you're gonna have your game data mined in a week, and they're gonna find out where it is. Yeah, you go into it, and it's like it's in like the style of it just completely changes the game's art style to like a Link to the Past, and it's just the same room except a new guy's name in it.
Thank you for joining us and discussing our ideas for making the perfect Zelda game. We would love it if you could follow us on Twitter and listen to future episodes on Spotify and iTunes. Join our community Discord server to continue today's discussion, and we'll see you next time on the Switch Clicks podcast.